a common European army, fiscal policy, and migration policy, or 27 armies, 27 tax systems, and 27 migration policies. What will it be by 2035? An EU breakup or an integrated federal union? In 2017, the previous EU president asked the very same question and presented 5 possible scenarios of what the EU could become in the future. The first scenario is simple. The EU carries on with its current course of action, only making incremental improvements to existing policies and institutions. For example, we could focus on immediate challenges, such as immigration and global warming, without undergoing major reform. The second scenario is nothing but the single market. This scenario would focus on maximizing the benefits of the EU single market while reducing EU integration in other areas. For example, the EU would concentrate on economic cooperation and the removal of trade barriers, but political integration would be limited to a minimum. The third scenario is those who want more, do more. Here the EU would allow for a differentiated integration, where some member states integrate more deeply in certain areas, while others do not. For example, this has already happened in terms of the Eurozone, as only 20 EU countries use the euro as their currency. Then there's the fourth scenario, which is doing less more efficiently. The EU would focus on areas where it can have a real impact and delegate other responsibilities back to the national level. For example, the EU could reduce its intervention in the agricultural sector, where the common agricultural policy has been criticized for being too complex, bureaucratic, and costly. Lastly, there's scenario 5, doing much more together. Here the EU would deepen its integration and pool more resources to tackle common challenges, allowing the EU to be more decisive and stronger on the global stage. For example, the EU could increase defense cooperation among its member states, including the creation of a joint military headquarters and the development of a European defense fund. So there you have it, the 5 scenarios of what the EU could become in the future. To make it easier to understand the differences between these, we can plot them on a graph. First, on the vertical axis, from integration to disintegration, and on the horizontal axis, from differentiated to uniform. Now let's map the scenarios onto this spectrum. As you can see, scenario 5, which is doing much more together, is in the top right corner, as here the EU would integrate uniformly, without countries opting out or getting special treatment. The third scenario, those who want more, do more, is more to the left, as this would still be high integration but differentiated, as not all EU countries would participate. Notice how the lower left quadrant is completely empty. Obviously, the EU did not want to present an option of disintegration and differentiation, as this would pretty much mean the end of the EU. But to complete the picture, let's add a 6th scenario and call it back to the nation states. So where are we heading? When these scenarios were presented in 2017, right after the Brexit vote and the migrant crisis, the 3 scenarios at the bottom leading to less integration were strong possibilities. But fast forward to today, and things look very different. Brexit has been a failure, the war in Ukraine has brought the EU closer together, public support has increased, and even the biggest Eurosceptics no longer want to leave the Union, thus making more EU integration a real possibility. Yet in our opinion, option 1 is most likely for the foreseeable future. Last year, 13 countries actively came out against EU reform, therefore making treaty change very unlikely. One could make a case for scenario 3, where some EU countries decide to work together more closely on some policy areas. For example, Germany and the Netherlands are already planning to merge their land combat units this year. Let us know which scenario you like best in the comments, and please subscribe and like the video. And if you want to support the channel further, please consider signing up to Patreon.